You know, I'm kind of torn today. Should I talk about something serious like yesterday? Should I talk about trash? And you know what? Yesterday was pretty dark. It was pretty serious. So it's the Saturday, it's the weekend. I think I want to bring some levity to this channel and call myself out for a video that I made last week about the ghettoization of the internet. And that video was prompted by something that I covered in a previous video, another trash video like this one, where I talked about the debate between Mr. Medicare and Nicholas J. Fuentes. And my takeaway from that debate, which I summarized in that ghettoization of the internet video, was that, wow, this Nick guy really seems to have gone off the rails. I guess this is what happens, you know, when you get banned off of Twitter and banned off of Twitch and banned off of YouTube and even banned off of DLive, and you have to go start your own website, and you just have this echo chamber with all of your own followers, and then you just turn into, like drama obsessed person with a viewpoint that is in like tastes that are so specific and niche that you could never have any kind of mass appeal or a mass audience. And my takeaway from this is that, wow, you know, it seems like censorship has actually worked to neutralize Nick Fuentes. It turned him into, a petty little bitch. But after listening last night to the Keno Casino, an expose in which former Fuentes confidants who have escaped his movement were brought in, it seems to me that maybe Nick Fuentes was just a crazy person all along. And so maybe I can't take his case and extrapolate and say, you know what, maybe censorship has had the effect that the left would want and has, it's been able to neutralize someone like him. And it could be used also to neutralize other effective voices, because say what you will about Fuentes, he was for a time a skilled broadcaster. And I thought he was effective at getting out, his message, although I didn't agree with his message. I was never a Fuentes fan, still not. I'm less, let's say, I'll put it this way, I'm further now from being a Fuentes fan than I was before. And I don't think that what has become of him and his organization is necessarily the result of him being censored off of mainstream platforms and being denied access to a mainstream audience, and really, being himself being exposed to mainstream people. I don't think that's it. Catboy Neko Fuentes just seems to be, a narcissist who latches onto people, uses them, and then tosses them aside. He also appears to be a cult leader. And cults have existed for as long as man has existed. People like Fuentes that, demand loyalty and then, give no loyalty in return, and who, cultivate this very small group, because in order to maintain, a real cult, you have to keep the group small, because only so many people are going to be that dedicated to you personally. If you were to grow and expand and try to become mainstream, the cultishness of your organization would be exposed, and people would be turned off from that. And so, once I started to come to this realization, all of a sudden this became a very interesting story, because, I like cult stories. Jonestown was always a fun topic, in my opinion. Scientology, which is pretty close to home for me, they're based in, I think, Clearwater, or somewhere in Pinellas County. It might be Pinellas Park. I think it's Clearwater. They've got their massive headquarters, bizarre-looking building, where people go in, or nobody ever goes in, nobody ever goes out. It's like Wonka's Chocolate Factory. We also in Florida had the Finders cult. Back in the 80s. That was a little before my time, but actually, Jim Medicare did a very good stream on the Finders cult. I think it was a couple years ago now. You should go back and listen to it if you're interested in cults. And so what do all of these cults have in common? They have a charismatic leader, whether it be L. Ron Hubbard, or Jim Jones, or Neko Fuentes, who have this, I guess you could say, populist message. I don't know. That's probably the wrong term. I don't want to, because populist has taken on a different connotation here in the United States now. It refers to a more, something a little more specifically political. Well, let's say a message that brings people in. I'll put it that way. Gives people who lack a certain kind of meaning in their life, it gives them something to latch onto and to find meaning. And once they're hooked, the cult then slowly strips away whatever identity these people have outside of the cult. They say, okay, you need to slough off your family, cut people out of your life who are not a part of the cult. As long as you have, your cult brethren and the cult leader, they're your real family. And once they do this, once you've been isolated, once your entire identity and your entire existence is tied up in this cult, they have full control over you, because obviously if you try and leave, then you've already given up everything you had outside of the cult. If you leave, you have nothing. You have no family. You have no friends. Everyone that you cut out of your life before, there's a good chance that they'll still hate you. Hopefully, if you have a good family and they're nice people and they're forgiving, they will try and welcome you back in and try and reintegrate you, into normal human society. But that's not true for everyone. Typically, if you had a good, well-understanding family to begin with, people who loved you, you might not be attracted to this cult-like environment. It's people who are lost, who are searching for meaning, who don't have that kind of support from their family, who most of the time are drawn into these cults. Look at the Manson family. The Manson family was made up of runaway girls who, I believe most of them, wanted to run away and go to Hollywood and become an actress. Which usually ends up, leading to prostitution or pornography. But in their case, they ended up being accessories to serial murder. And luckily, nothing that sinister has happened in the case of the Neko Fuentes cult. And hopefully, nothing like that ever will happen. But it doesn't really change the nature of the situation. What seems clear to me at this point is that Neko had built up a following through his YouTube show. He gave people a certain level of meaning. He attracted people to him who wanted to help him. But it seems that he has a certain level of paranoia about being eclipsed by his own subordinates, and that he is willing to sacrifice the success of his own operation just in order so that he can guarantee the maintenance of the superior subordinate relationship that he had with people like Jaden McNeil or this Simon fellow. It seems as though that when people within his organization are too successful or start to attract their own following, or even just seem to be perceived to have some sort of leadership role within the organization, even if they are still seen as being below Nick, if people look up to them within the organization, that's a bad thing. And it seems that Nick only wants people to look up to him. Everyone else is equally subordinate, equally weak, equally small in comparison to the Catboy. And so if he gets this sense that he feels threatened by anyone in the organization, I think that he's willing to sacrifice the viability of his organization and whatever goals they might have had in mind to ensure his position at the top. Reminds me a little bit, actually, of Tim Pool. Not that I have a big problem with Tim Pool. No, I don't think Tim Pool is running a cult. But I do think that Tim Pool is someone who's very conscious about making sure that he is, the big man at his compound. And that, he is the smartest guy in the room. And that everyone else is clearly below him. And there's a lot of people who are like this, it's a classic thing, like, the high school girl who wants to surround herself with friends who aren't as pretty as her so that she is the prettiest girl in the group. People who feel weak internally have to compensate for that externally. These are people who fundamentally lack self-esteem. And so even if it means neutering his organization, neutering, his own potential, career, foregoing any sort of advancement of his supposed political goals that he advocates for, on his program. I was just thinking about, what these guys were talking about, what they did, and all this stuff that I didn't realize that they were like, 100. They had 100 interns. Like they found that many people who were willing to work for free for Nick Fuentes for like what? I was just thinking like what? These people, they had people who had real political ambitions, who were trying to get things done, and, setting up like student groups and trying to vet candidates to endorse. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I had people like this doing this. I wish I had what Neko Fuentes appears to have squandered. And, obviously, I think I don't have the salt to attract people like that. I don't think I have the vision. But this guy obviously did. He had enough skill and talent and dedication to attract these people to his orbit and to get the ball rolling, and then he just threw it all away, seemingly just so that he could guarantee his position at the top, so that he could be the big fish in the small pond, even though they had the chance to migrate to a bigger and better pond. He threw that away, because then he might not be the big fish anymore. And I was just thinking, like, gee, I wish I had that kind of skill. I wish I had that kind of persuasion and charisma to where I could get people who are willing to work for me for free to advance my political goals. And to have the gall to, get mad at people over that and to just, show them no gratitude. I mean, it's just, it's infuriating, because if you really believe in because again, I'm not a fan of Mr. Fuentes' politics. I don't think he's the worst person in the world, but he's not, is not my cup of tea. So I'm not super sorry that, his movement didn't make it. I'm just saying in general, to be, a political pundit, and to have these people surround you and want to build a legitimate political movement, that should be every political pundit's goal. That should be every political YouTuber's goal. Everyone who streams about these things. Anyone who just talks about this stuff. Because if you're talking about this every day, it's because at a certain level you're passionate about it, right? You're not just talking all day so that you can get kind of guys in their late teens, early 20s to send you super chats and say, Nick, you're the greatest. Or maybe that was his goal the whole time. It's just amazing to see the implosion of all this. And frankly, because he had more going for him than I knew. Hey, he organized these big events and things. His group had these, had their own rival to CPAC. I mean, that's a pretty bold thing to do, to try and organize your own event in the same town as CPAC at the exact same time and have your own rival slate of speakers. And he attracted people who were willing to travel to this. And it's just, I don't understand how you could, but I mean, this is what you always see with people. How could you accomplish so much and then squander it? The only explanation is that, politics was not really his goal. This was not a political movement. It was always about building a personality cult. And so to the extent that advancing political goals meant sacrificing the cultishness of the movement, that those political goals were rather what had to be sacrificed. If there is a trade-off between those two things, he's going to lean towards maintaining the cultishness, not advancing the politics. And it's just incomprehensible to me. I don't know how someone could be so small-minded. But that appears to be the nature of Catboy Neko Fuentes. So, yeah, you could say this is a pretty trashy video. But I don't care. I found it interesting. I find cults interesting. And it's a weekend. So, I try to cut loose a little bit on weekends. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.